A good Wednesday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We have a lot of the same to talk about when it comes to Wednesday specifically's forecast, and a lot of that pattern is going to carry into your Thursday. But once we get into the weekend, that's where some changes do arrive. So we'll have a new model run of Future View to take a look at. So we'll pop that up in just a little bit. But first things first, we like to talk about the rain totals from the day before. Haven't gotten the chance to really talk about this the last 2 days, but we did have our fair share of scattered showers and some thunderstorms yesterday. Specifically, northern Dodge County, right on the Bleckley County line, totaled almost 4 inches of rain from some of those scattered showers yesterday. So you can get locally heavy amounts just like this, but overall, most of central Georgia didn't see much in the way of rain. If you did get a heavy shower or a thunderstorm, you might have gotten upwards to just over 1.5 inches of rain, like areas over here west of Hawkinsville and Pulaski County, kind of around the Marshallville area and northern Macon County, north of Montezuma, and 1.5 inches right around Roberta. Warner Robins got its fair share of rain, at least portions more so in the western end of the county. I do remember trying to go to sleep last night, heard a couple rumbles of thunder, checked that satellite and radar picture, and yes, it didn't look too kind, but luckily it was just a little bit away from my house. Going up to northern Monroe County, where we see about 3 inches of rain just north of Forsyth. Going down into our south and southeasternmost counties, you can see just over 2 inches of rain in Wheeler County, just shy of 2 inches of rain over in Soperton. And then as we go up into Milledgeville around Baldwin County, maybe only recording just about a trace of rain in a select few areas. So it does look like we got our fair share of rain in some areas, but we didn't record any at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, so I don't have any updates to give you in terms of the specific amounts about where we are under your departure. We've just seen that number steadily tick down, but it's been a very wet month of August, and all you need to know, this is about the 3rd day in a row that we haven't recorded rain in the Macon area. So today is going to be another hot and muggy day. Small afternoon rain chances are going to be in the picture today. But then we'll see an uptick starting tomorrow, and they're definitely going to be very widespread as we go into Friday afternoon. So you'll see what I'm talking about when we show you Future View here in just a moment. Taking a look at your temperatures, upper 70s and low 80s right now. So not quite as warm as the last couple of days. We were seeing some 84s and some 85s already at this time the last 2 days. But that is in part because we did have some foggy skies early this morning, and that contributed to some mostly cloudy skies, at least for about an hour or so before that cloud cover finally broke apart, but it did block the sunshine for just a little bit. So I don't think anyone is going to even flirt with the highest temperature that we do see. Actually, maybe not too far off. The highest I see is only 85 in Orlando. There's an 86 over here in New Orleans, so I think that takes the cake for our warmest temperature right now. But a big talking point is going to be this big swirly over here, just to the east of Georgia and Florida. That is Hurricane Erin as it does creep close to the United States, but we'll talk more about that. It's still not expected to pose any impacts to our forecast in central Georgia, besides a predominantly north and northeasterly breeze throughout today, since we're getting pretty close to the wind field and the circulation with that system. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures. Nice and muggy all across the area. It has been muggy since this morning, and it will remain muggy as we go into the afternoon hours. Not looking at any relief from maybe some of this drier air up to the north and northeast, getting ushered down into central Georgia. Random patch of some light green down there just to the south of us. That's not something you typically see, but we do have some spots of that really dark green color, so indicating some very muggy air like you do see down in areas in Dooley County, Crisp County, and over in our eastern half east of I-75. So take a look at your feels like numbers. Feels like 90 in Forsyth, mostly 80s across most of the board. We do have a couple 70s in Thomaston and Roberta. As you go down I-75, it gets muggier and muggier. Feels like 97 in Unadilla and 95 in Cordele. Taking a look at a cluster of 90s over here in our easternmost counties. Feels like 90 in Sandersville, 90 in Wrightsville, 91 in Dublin, all the way down to 92 in Vidalia, but most of central Georgia still feeling pretty true to their actual temperature values somewhere in the 80s. Here's a look at the winds and the wind gusts. As Hurricane Erin does creep closer to the eastern coast of the United States, we'll start to see more of this blue area push into central Georgia, but overall not expecting terribly gusty winds today, just kind of your typical run-of-the-mill, about 5 to 10, maybe even a 15-mile-per-hour gust throughout today. Here's a look at the almanac yesterday. 93. So once again, another day that we have clocked 93 degrees. That is the third day in a row and 1 degree above average this time of year. I told you yesterday that we had some upper 60s in the forecast, and in fact we did clock that upper 60 up here in the Macon area, average low around 71 degrees. So we went 3 under par when it comes to your average low, and we went 1 over par when it comes to comparing our average high. So nowhere near the record of 101, but fairly close to that record low of 64 back in 1976. We were talking about the rain, that your departure went down just a touch, pretty close to the 4-inch mark. So we're 4 inches above where we should be in the year of 2025 as a whole. And sunrise yesterday, 7:01, sunset at 8:15. We're continuing to add about a minute to those times just about every day or two until we get into those really short time frames as we go into the fall and the winter season. So staying hot today. Rain chances are looking greater farther to the west today. We'll see if the latest run of Future View is picking up on that guidance, because it wasn't necessarily showing it as of this morning, but the model run when I first came into work was definitely picking up on better rain chances to the west. 93 for a high temperature again. Let's see if we can make it 4 days in a row hitting this 93-degree mark. But when you factor in the humidity, you know the heat indices are going to be a good deal warmer, but not terribly oppressive. Look at this, somewhere in the upper 90s, and in fact this graphic is a little bit lower than it has been the last couple of days, only topping out at 98. So maybe indicating some cloud cover, maybe a stray shower that will provide maybe a degree 2 or 3 of relief, but I think our fair share of areas will probably flirt with that triple-digit mark, because you already saw it feels like number of 97 down in Unadilla, and it's not even noon yet when we start to get into some of those warmer temperatures. Here's a look at the satellite and radar picture. Now starting to see a little bit of cloud cover enter the forecast, but this current image is actually going along with what we were saying about the rain chances being greater to the west. Already to the northwest of us here in central Georgia, just to the north of LaGrange, west of Peachtree City. Good cluster of some heavy showers moving through some of those counties in West Georgia, and that's going to continue to move down to the south courtesy of this northerly breeze we have present. So I do believe where you see the cloud cover, where you see some of the rain, that's going to continue to trail down towards the south. And we do have better rain chances, say, in Upson County, Crawford County, over into Taylor County, as opposed to over here in maybe Johnson County or Washington County. Not to say that you couldn't get rain in those counties, but the chances are a lot greater farther to the west as opposed to farther to the east. Probably only about a 10% chance of rain the farther east that you do live. Here's a look at the satellite and radar. Not much, just seeing some rain to the northwest of us and plenty of cloud cover over towards the east. That is all associated with Hurricane Erin off the Atlantic coast, and it's beginning to start to have some impacts here on the Carolina coast. Probably starting to see an uptick in those winds, maybe some outer bands of rain that are approaching courtesy of the circulation of Erin. So we go later into this afternoon. You see that kind of edge of cloud cover right there, and where the wind arrows start to get a lot longer and more yellow in color. That's the closer that you're getting to the center of circulation with Erin, but not really posing any impacts to us. This latest run of Future View still hinting at scattered showers, maybe a storm or two later this afternoon. And now finally, I think it's getting on board with the idea that the rain chances are going to be greater farther to the west. We continue to play this through into the late afternoon and evening hours, where some clusters could approach maybe directly north here in central Georgia. Not to say that that couldn't happen, but the chances of it are a lot less than you do have for some rain over to the west today. We go into the overnight hours, clearing out like we have the last couple of days. It should be a nice and crystal clear start to your Thursday, with the exception of some fog in those areas that did receive maybe some late night rain. But going into Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. right now, scattered showers, couple of storms already bubbling up as we go into the early afternoon hours. Doesn't look terribly impressive in the way of rain, but it does look like an uptick in terms of coverage in the central Georgia area as compared to what we've had today, or what we're going to have today, rather, I should say, and what we've had the past couple of days, Monday and Tuesday, to kick off the work week. We'll start to see some clusters of thunderstorms form, but the big thing I want to turn your attention to is as we transition in from Thursday all the way into Friday for the end of the work week. So there's a good amount of cloud cover in the picture still by 9 p.m., regardless of if you're receiving rain or not. And you can see a couple of showers and storms are going to try to hang out until we get to about the midnight hour and then fizzle out. But there's a good amount of cloud cover that already remains in the forecast. By the time we're getting into sunrise on Friday morning, we are going to continue to watch that to be more widespread. but we still are going to warm up accordingly. We'll have those breaks in cloud cover, and as soon as temperatures do warm, that's when activity gets going, starting out of the scattered nature, but the farther you progress into the afternoon and evening hours, that's where things get a bit messy. More so a couple of clusters that are maybe more widespread than just your general hit or miss or spotty shower thunderstorm that we're dealing with over the next couple of days. It does look like the coverage of rain is a lot more widespread going into Friday evening, and specifically 6 p.m. right here. This is obviously going to be a pretty important time because not only are you getting off of work, not only are you kickstarting your weekend, maybe some dinner plans with friends and family, but it's also football season now here in Central Georgia. And this isn't the image that you want as you're getting about an hour away from kickoff, seeing plenty of patches of orange and red, even some dark reds that you can see. Now, this doesn't mean that there's going to be a thunderstorm specifically around Upson, Lamar, and Monroe County at 6 p.m. on Friday. Just think of this as the potential. This could pop up anywhere in Central Georgia. So, of course, make sure that you're bringing the rain jackets and the umbrellas out to football games. But I have a feeling that most football games are probably going to get canceled, maybe pushed into Saturday. If you do get it in, it's going to be a messy forecast, and that's something you really want to sit outside for anyway. But this goes on until 8 p.m., and in fact, the rain continues to be very widespread, moving in kind of from north to south as we go into Friday evening, before finally we start to clear out the further into the night that we go on Friday. But the cloud cover that we do have present, it looks to stick around for most of the overnight hours, and that's going to do a good job at suppressing the warm up and not allowing for those high temperatures to get as high as we go into Saturday afternoon. So for the next 3 days, Wednesday and Thursday, pretty much the same forecast. We're just going to see slightly better coverage of rain on Thursday. I have the uptick to 40%. It may be more about like a 30% chance of rain, but the big thing I want to address is just the uptick. So we will have better rain chances Thursday as opposed to what we have for Wednesday. And again, that rain chance greatest to the west today as we go into the afternoon. But then we continue to see the increase in the rain chances. 60% chance of rain on Friday. That may be undershooting it. I have a feeling that we'll probably bump that up to about a 70 or 80% chance of rain. But we are going to warm up before that rain gets going in the afternoon hours. So a high temperature of 89 degrees. It's going to really make that warm up fairly short-lived. And Thursday, before rain gets going in the afternoon, a high temperature of 93. I think we'll still see our fair share of areas that do get ample sunshine and allow for that warm up that are temperatures right there around average for where they should be this time of year. So for Wednesday and Thursday, those are the 2 days left that we have at least around average or above average. Then every other day that you'll see on your 7-day forecast is going to be below average. And yes, it's not going to feel too different. 89 as compared to 93, not too much of a difference, but any day that we can get below the 90-degree mark is going to be a big win. And especially with the humidity we have in the forecast, we know all these numbers are going to feel warmer. So if you dip your temperatures down a couple degrees, your feels like temperatures are also going to go down a couple of degrees. But with the cloud cover remaining present into the morning hours on Saturday, I think that's really not going to allow for much of a warm up. We'll still get some breaks in the cloud cover that will allow for some numbers that get up into the 80s, but 85 on Saturday is the coolest day I have forecasted because of that widespread cloud cover. Now we go into Sunday, 88 degrees, so it looks like we begin another steady warm up as we go into the end of the weekend, which could indicate a possible break in the rain. Maybe not as much in the way of rain, so some more sunshine that allow for temperatures just to get a little bit higher and a little bit higher. So now let's take a look at your humidity. It's not going to waver as we go all the way through the first half of your weekend, but then a little bit of a downtick Sunday, still hanging out some noticeable levels on Monday. But how about that between Monday and Tuesday? This is what we've been searching for when we've been talking about this graphic over recent days, trying to get these dew point temperatures in the comfortable range. And that's a really good indication that our frontal boundary, by the time we get to next week, is going to play a role with at least ushering in some drier air. The big question now is going to be, can we get some of the cooler air along with that drier air? And we'll talk more about that in just a second. So now let's pick up future view with your long range models. What's in store for your Saturday afternoon? Still looks like a good amount of widespread rain. Once we get this image on the short range models tomorrow, we can give you a better idea of the percentage chance of it. Right now, I've still elected for a 60% chance because I'm more confident in rain chances on Saturday as opposed to Sunday. But Sunday, we actually looked at finally have that front moving through. You're seeing a good amount of linear organization, at least to the north of us. So it does look like that front might push through, interact with whatever humidity that we still have left in the forecast, and that could increase the rain chances. But as of right now, it does look like we have less agreement on some rain on Sunday as compared to Saturday. And now we go into Monday, where we may be completely dry. That would be a very, very nice forecast. Even if the temperatures are warm, the dew point temperatures will not be as warm as the drier air does make its entrance. So in turn, your actual high temperatures are going to feel pretty true to their values if we get dew point temperatures, say, in the 50s or even just down into the low 60s. They don't really start to influence the forecast until you get dew point temperatures somewhere in the mid to upper 60s. And even then, it's only about a degree or two influence that you do have on the feels like numbers. But then going into Tuesday evening, still remaining clear, but it does look like some kind of weirdly shaped system does try to approach from the west, and right now you'll see some shades of blue that try to creep into the state of Georgia. This is just what one model run does say, and it's a very light blue. It's not like this dark blue that you do see back over into Mississippi and Alabama. So not as much confidence in that. I've still elected for a 20% chance to cover the bases as it currently stands. And then as we go into Wednesday, this still isn't a very impressive rain chance whatsoever, especially compared to what Friday and Saturday have been showing on long range as of recently. But let's talk a little bit about Aaron, because obviously it is a big topic and it's fairly close to home. But I'm here to reassure you that there is not going to be any impacts here in central Georgia directly from Aaron. Now, we may have some indirect impacts in the fact that Aaron could influence our forecast just a little bit, but anything associated with tropical moisture, anything in the way of some of those winds are really not going to impact us whatsoever. The areas that are going to see some impacts are going to be the Carolina coast and maybe getting up into the Chesapeake Bay area, coastal Virginia, coastal Maryland. And right now, Aaron is still at the 8, I believe I just stepped in front of it, 8 a.m. advisories. So we haven't gotten the 11 a.m. advisory in just yet. I imagine that will come out fairly shortly. And of course, you can check in with the latest tropics update on 13wmaz.com, our web story that we have written up for it, or along with that, find it on YouTube. I'll be recording that after I do this extended forecast in order to give you an up-to-date, an update on what Hurricane Aaron is doing. But we haven't seen much fluctuation with it, especially the cone. The cone has continued to do a very good job on the potential path of Aaron. Right now, 100-mile-per-hour winds, which is good enough for a Category 2 storm, not necessarily a high-end Category 2, because yesterday the winds were up to 110, and that is the last mile per hour that you can reach before crossing the threshold into major hurricane status as a Category 3 storm. But Aaron right now is expected to continue to make a northward turn, and then once it gets off the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina, that's when it's going to start to have a more northeasterly direction and start to curve and thread that needle between Bermuda. I don't know if it's about threading the needle, but go in between this area of the island of Bermuda and the mid-Atlantic portion of the United States. Still not going to make landfall on any form of a landmass, but it is a pretty strong storm right now, and it's going to have a pretty large wind field and lots of moisture associated with it. That's why areas on the Carolina coast have been issued in some tropical storm watches and even some storm surge warnings associated with this. So as we go throughout the next couple of days, Thursday into Friday, still a Category 2 storm off the coast of Virginia and Maryland now, and then it continues to move up into portions of northeast Canada, but it won't make any landfall up there. It's just going to move and be simply a fish storm as it goes all the way into the North Atlantic. And then you can see by Saturday morning, it should weaken into a Category 1. And by the time we get into Sunday morning, it should weaken into a remnant low pressure system. But then going into the beginning of next week, it still looks like it's maintaining some form of organization. So you see this right here, 65-mile-per-hour winds. That's obviously still good enough for a tropical storm status, but if this continues to hold together with organization and continue to progress kind of along this path, next in line would be the United Kingdom and areas up there in Northern Europe, maybe up into the Iceland area. We'll see if it has any impacts there, but as of right now, that's really far out in the future. But I'm sure those areas are closely monitoring what the cone is going to do. The big thing is it's going to weaken as it moves up into this cooler water in the northern Atlantic Ocean, and it's not going to impact us here in central Georgia. But there are two other areas that we want to keep a close eye on, and we've been talking about them over the last couple of days. There is one system directly behind Hurricane Aaron that has continued to progress farther to the west in the Atlantic Ocean. Well, now the big thing that has been inhibiting development with this system has been this dust plume that we see out in the Atlantic Ocean. It has really just had all of that Saharan dust present for quite a while, but still only 10% chances of developing, or 10% chance of developing over the next 48 hours. It does look like once it finally gets out of these last few areas of some dust, it will start to gain its organization, move into a more conducive environment. And that's why you see a pretty high chance of developing past the 48-hour window. So by the time we get into this weekend, it does look like this tropical wave will finally start to get its act together, but it's probably not going to be until it gets into the shaded area. And speaking of the orange shaded area, that's been probably the most notable change with this. It has been following a direct path with Aaron. It actually had this shaded area going all the way up into the Bahamas, areas around Turks and Caicos, just like Aaron went over. Well, now we see a northern kind of shift in this shaded area, indicating that it's probably going to curve up to the north just like Aaron did, but a little bit earlier. So hopefully it's not going to impact any land masses whatsoever, but this could have some implications for any of you if you're planning a cruise maybe possibly over the next week or so. I know Labor Day weekend is coming up very fast, and also down in the Caribbean. So areas like Puerto Rico, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, all of these islands that are in the northern Lesser Antilles, that's where we are looking at some impacts maybe over the next couple of days, but I don't think it's going to be terribly strong by the time it does make its way over there. And the good news is it's going away from us here at home in central Georgia. But we now have a new update with this tropical wave that's continued to move off the coast of Africa. And yes, there is some dust present, but it's not as big of dust plume as the system ahead of it was dealing with. So we've continued to see increasing chances of development with this moving off the Saharan coast of Africa. Yesterday, it was just south of Cape Verde, so these island nations right over here, and it continues to push over to the west. 40% chance of developing over the next 7 days, which isn't as high as that 60, but it's also got a 40% chance of developing over the next 2 days. So that means this has a greater likelihood of developing sooner than as opposed to the system that is ahead of it. This is something we'll need to be on the lookout for, and obviously it would have a lot of ocean to interact with and could intensify fairly quickly, but this is where it does stand as of 8 a.m. on Wednesday, something we'll continue to keep a very close eye on. And also at that, if this is to even come close to central Georgia, it's going to be about another week and a half, 2 weeks before it really even gets into our neck of the woods. But everything is far from certain about the specific path with this area of potential development. Continue to stay updated, and we'll be continuing to throw these tropics updates out there all the time over the course of the next couple of weeks, because it is getting to be a very active time in terms of the Atlantic hurricane season. As we go into the end of August, we'll eventually cross over into September as we go into Labor Day officially. And then just 9 days after that is the official peak of hurricane season, where we typically see a lot of areas of development, a lot of tropical storms, a lot of hurricanes. So that's what we'll be keeping our eyes peeled for, and it will be important to just kind of monitor it day by day. Make it a mission of, or part of your daily routine, to just check in with these potential areas of development. Okay, what are the chances of developing now? Has it formed into anything? Okay, it's formed into something. Let's send a question to the weather team. Let's see, do they have any spaghetti plots or any idea about it long range? And we'll be happy to let you know about that, given the sensitivity of everything that did happen last year with our hurricane season. So 7-day forecast, summertime swing today and tomorrow. Chances of rain are steadily increasing all the way up to Friday. I think Friday is going to be your best shot at seeing some form of rain, whether it's a light shower, whether it's just a drizzle. But I think most areas are probably going to see pretty scattered heavy showers and our fair amount of thunderstorms. Wouldn't even rule out a strong or a severe thunderstorm or two in the cards as we go into Friday. But it will help keep the temperatures at bay. If not the rain, it will be the cloud cover. 85 on Saturday, looking to feel the best of the bunch, but not necessarily the most conducive atmosphere for having any outdoor activities. Then as the rain chances scatter back out once again, notice how big the cloud icons are on Friday and Saturday, and they go back to smaller on Sunday, because we will start to see a steady warm up. More breaks in the cloud cover leads to more images of some sunshine, and that's going to contribute to a little bit more surface heating. But then we go into Monday, high temperature of 90 degrees, so that's still below average, but a high temperature of 90 is still definitely warm this time of year. But if you pair it up with the almost non-existent humidity that we're looking to bring into place, that may be Tuesday once we get that. that's going to feel absolutely amazing. So hopefully we get that downtick in humidity. 20% chance of rain as it does currently stand on Monday and Tuesday. This is definitely overshooting it from what you saw in the long range models, but during this time of year, we would definitely rather overshoot the rain chances and backtrack them down, just given the unpredictability of them. It's the summertime season, so typically you can have at least normally a 10% or a 20% chance of rain. But if we really see that downtick and that ushering in of drier air, that's going to lead to us taking away rain chances completely, maybe for Monday and Tuesday. But also it does look like we have a slight indication of maybe some drier air coming along, or maybe some cooler air coming along with that drier air, because you see 90 down to 87 on Tuesday. And yes, take a look at this temperature outlook. We showed you this yesterday, and there is a lot of deep blue up here just to the north of us, close to the Great Lakes and the Midwest portions of the country. And now you're taking a look at that near normal area, which was over many of our southern counties yesterday in central Georgia. That continues to push down. So it does look like we have greater chances steadily by steadily. I mean, this is a pretty good gradient right now on this temperature outlook, where we do have a good probability of below normal and below average temperatures to the north of us. And this time frame is going to be August 25th through August 29th. So that's getting in to kind of right there around that time frame of the middle of next week all the way into the first half of next weekend. If we could get some cooler and drier air in here paired up with some sunny skies for the first weekend of college football, I think that is going to be a treat for all of us. But we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll continue to stay updated. But it does look like a pretty good chance of seeing some cooler air along with the drier air that should filter in behind the frontal boundary next week. So we get through 2 more hot and muggy days, and then finally some relief will be in store. Make sure you don't go anywhere without grabbing the raincoat or the rain jacket this weekend, but obviously try to stay indoors as much as you can, especially if there are some widespread thunderstorms out there. But I know a lot of people are trying to go to football games this weekend, so just be very cautious. And like I said, I do imagine that we'll have our fair share of cancellations if we do have some thunderstorms that are widespread in the area, because you can't play football with all the lightning in the area, and you just don't want to have delay after delay each and every lightning strike. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that, but it does look like Friday and Saturday are going to be quite messy. Maybe a good day for a movie marathon, or a great day on Saturday for watching the college football kickoff over in Ireland. Thanks for tuning in. We'll give you another update back here tomorrow at 10:30 sharp.